welcome to the 7th episode of the Middle School AD podcast. I am your host, Thomas Fredrickson, and today I sat down with Don Baker, the Director of Athletics for Cobb County Schools in Georgia. Our main discussion focused around leadership, an AD's passion and process, and a couple leadership books to help you grow. I hope you're able to get better after our discussion today, but before we dive in, here's some words from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Gipper, the preferred sports graphics platform for ADs. Start creating professional-looking sports graphics today by starting a free trial. Middle School AD podcast listeners get 10% off any plan when you use code MSAD10 at Gipper.com. As an athletic administrator, you understand better than most how much support matters. Support for your coaches, support for your athletes, and support for your department are crucial to providing the best possible experience for every student. Snap Mobile is now your one-stop for all the tools you need to support your department. With our expanded suite of products, you can now raise money, open team stores, schedule and manage your facilities, and communicate with your athletes, parents, and stakeholders with the same level of care you've come to expect from Snap. Visit snapraise.com today to schedule a demo with your local Snap Mobile representative.
Hometown Ticketing makes it fast and easy to buy tickets on your school's website or in the new Hometown Fan app. It's simple. Just search for your school, buy your tickets, and they'll be right there in your account, ready to be scanned when you get to your event. Download the Hometown Fan app today.
This is Game Time. Neptune Game Time creates a high-energy game day atmosphere that your players and fans will love. Every song in our database is 100% lyric safe, which means you can stop screening music for good. Game Time also provides custom messaging to help you promote your upcoming events, concessions, and event-specific announcements. And it gives you the opportunity to sell sponsorships on your station that will generate revenue for your athletic department. Amp up your game day with Game Time.
Welcome to another episode of the Middle School AD podcast. Today we are speaking with Mr. Don Baker, who is the Director of Athletics for Cobb County Schools in Georgia. He has been an athletic director for 12 years and is a certified master athletic administrator. Don is a Georgia High School Association Executive Committee member, a Georgia Athletic Director Association board member, State Conference LTC instructor, and a National Conference workshop presenter and moderator. Don is also the co-host of Hanging with the AD podcast. So Don, we read out a bunch of things, but we appreciate you joining with us today.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for the invite.
Like I said, we just read out a bunch about you, but if you want to kind of let the listeners know a little bit more about you and who you are and kind of your journey, and then we'll dive into it.
All right. Yeah, sure. A very proud father and husband, a very active dad to two kids. I've got a son that is a freshman swimmer in one of our high schools that I serve, and then my daughter's in the 7th grade. We go all around the Southeast following her playing travel soccer. So we're stay pretty busy with her. And then married to my wife, Erin, for a little over 20 years, who is also in education. And thankfully, I married an English teacher, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it definitely helps whenever I can give her anything that I've got to do. And then it bleeds all over the place. She finds an artery as she edits and then gives it back to me. But no, just that's a little bit about who I am. I'm a Georgia guy. I was born and raised in South Georgia, Valdosta, Georgia, and moved up to the Atlanta area a little over, almost 25 years ago, and took a job teaching and coaching, and then that parlayed that into an AD job, and then just kind of rode that wave and really found my passion in it. And as a result, when this job to take over a district AD office was open, was able to take advantage of that and now oversee 16 high schools in Cobb County, which is the second largest school district in the state of Georgia. So stay pretty busy, but love every minute of it.
Good deal. Yeah, I'm married to a elementary school teacher, so I feel you with bleeding all over your stuff, and she always tells me, please let me check your social media things that you put out, especially if it's like a paragraph announcement.
Yeah, like really. Let me
Yeah.
take a look at that. Yeah,
Yeah, because she'll find something and she goes, you need to delete it from all your social media accounts and start over again. So I definitely feel that. So, kind of, who's been your biggest mentor in the world of athletic administration, and why?
Yeah. I think there's obviously we're made up of a lot of parts, right? And so John Kelly was the athletic director that I worked under at a local high school, and was teaching and really felt like I was kind of getting in a rut. I was a history teacher. History doesn't change, right? Every time that I teach it, it's going to be the same thing. And he knocked on the door one day and said, "Listen, I've got a principal job, and I'd love for you to interview for the AD job here at the school." And so I went out on a limb and did it. And he has always been a mentor of mine, has always been a guy that I could really lean on. We think about the world in a lot of different ways. And so he was great. And then had a building principal, Mark Trachtenbreut. He was a former AD when he came in. That was a little nerve wracking because he's coming in as an AD. I don't know if he's going to try to tell me how to do my job and how that's going to work. And ultimately, that ended up being a great partnership because he was able to see it from the eyes of a principal and knowing how I was going to see things as an AD. And sometimes we were able to, we really balanced each other just almost perfectly. And so really enjoyed that. And then, then lastly, my mom is the best manager of people that I've ever seen. She was a classroom teacher for over 30 years. It's kind of our family business. There's like 15 of us. I changed my major 4 times. I tried to run from it as much as I could, but ended up coming back. But she's the best manager of people that I've ever been around. My dad is the best motivator of people that I've ever been around. Another career educator, career coach. And so between, those 4 people have really helped me kind of develop my leadership style and influence me even today.
Good deal. Yeah. It's always fun listening to where we come from, and the next question I know is a little different for y'all. Kind of in our pre-discussion, you mentioned again you're a district AD with 16 high schools, but you don't really have middle school sports as
Correct.
of yet in the school districts. Where here in Greenville County, again Daryl Nance being our district AD, he's got 15 high schools and 20 middle schools. Mm-hmm. So it's a big time deal. But just kind of still kind of want to ask, what do you think the biggest challenge for those districts, those schools that do have middle school athletics? What do you think the biggest challenge is that we're facing today?
Well, I think that obviously, the pandemic changed everything, right? Kids came back from the pandemic. They were different. And so I think that we, as leaders, have to look at it that way. I believe that ADs and coaches, they're really an extension of the classroom. And as such, they need to reinforce those characteristics that are universal both on and off the field. Things like hard work, dealing with adversity, learning to be a part of a team, teamwork. The middle school AD is really no different. You're definitely dealing with students at a very different time in their lives. And so, you may want to end up reinforcing things that look a little different. It may be more on responsibility, independence, introducing them into interscholastic athletics. They're not playing rec anymore. They're not playing in a club environment anymore. They're starting to see what it looks like to be part of a team in an interscholastic environment. And I think that that's different. It's very different from the rec or the club environment. And so I think probably dealing with that transition is probably the biggest thing that you're having to deal with at the middle school level.
Yeah, I've been a high school AD for 6 years as well, and so like you said, when they come in as freshmen, they already kind of know how the school athletic world works,
right?
Because they got introduced in the 7th and 8th grade. But there at Cobb, since y'all don't have middle school, are y'all having to introduce your freshmen parents to that? Is it just delayed a little bit and you're having to introduce maybe maybe it is an elite ninth grader who makes a varsity team. Are y'all having to introduce that parent to, okay, now they're not playing club, they're playing a varsity sport. How's that work with y'all?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we do have a little bit of that learning curve with our freshmen because they are coming from, club level leagues, rec level leagues. We do have some middle school leagues. They don't fall under my office. They're not governed by me. They're governed by their own entities, but they try to mimic the policies and things that we do as best as they can, so that when those kids get there, they've got a little bit of taste of it. But you're right. There's definitely a learning curve for our freshmen, especially those that have been very successful up until that point, playing kids that are their age and on their level or whatever it may be. Now you're getting thrown in as a freshman. Depending on the sport, you get thrown in and you're playing a kid that's 18 years old. Well, that's a huge jump, right? And maybe you don't have that success that you've had up until that point. And sometimes, mom and dad don't necessarily know what to do, nor does the kid. And so we do have to have some of those conversations. Not everybody's going to get to play. Right. This is kind of a different deal. We're trying to create an environment where we want them to be successful. We're going to teach them, those core principles, those things that don't change in life, like hard work and dealing with adversity and being part of a team. But at the same time, we're trying to win games, and we're going to put the best kids on the field that are going to give us the opportunity to do that. And if that's your kid, that's great. If it's not, then it's not their time yet. And so we do have to have those conversations as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, especially at the middle school level, to tell a seventh grade parent or even a seventh grade kid, trying to explain to them the difference between what they're used to and to what school ball is.
Right.
And it's definitely a challenge. Some people get it, especially if they had older brothers and sisters, or if the parents played in school. And but others, it is a struggle. But I think majority of this conversation is going to kind of be on the leadership side, which I know you being one of the hosts for the Hanging with the AD, y'all talk to a ton of different types of leaders, high school ADs, college ADs, but not even that, just leader. Speakers and book writers and things like that. So I think, our listeners, could get something out of, hopefully your experience with, talking with those people and your leadership for the past 12 years. So kind of going into that section of it is, you mentioned before that the AD role is a passion. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that more than likely, you're the only one on your campus that's doing what you do, right? That's something that Rich Barton, formerly out in Utah, and now he's working with NIAAA. One of the things that he told us that really stuck with me: you're really the only one on that campus that's doing that job. Everybody else has somebody that they can go to. Another teacher does, another coach does, even another administrator does. They have someone to go to. You really don't. You're kind of on an island there. And outside of the building principal, in my opinion, you got more liability than any other person on the campus. So not having a passion for the job, it's really, quite frankly, a liability to the programs, to the coaches, to the student athletes in your building. It's almost malpractice if you harden into it because of the liability that's attached to it. Being an AD, it's a lifestyle. There is no work-life balance. That is a myth. Okay. So anybody that tells you that that's a thing, they are lying to you, because that's not a thing. I feel like you've got to find work-life harmony. I think that's a better way to define it. What that looks like, that's going to look different in every different building and every different leader. But it has to really be a lifestyle for you. I don't have many hobbies. Right. My work is my hobby. I enjoy that. That's part of why we do the Hanging with the AD podcast. That's part of why we kind of took a network that was already in place and kind of re-imaged it into the AD roundtable that we're doing right now through the podcast as well. But it's definitely has to be something that is that you're passionate about and something that your family's on board with, because it's going to take up a lot of your time, and it should, because of the importance that you play in the lives of the young people that you have the ability to have an impact on.
Yeah, I mentioned before in another conversation that my wife is, she's my unofficial assistant. She's even when I was at the high school, she was the voice of Friday Night Lights. And she was up there, running the music, announcing. But even when it's not, we've had a bunch of our parking lot picnics. You're at a cross country event, or you're at a football game, or you're at a soccer game or whatever, and she just drives up with some Chick-fil-A. We're down in the South, so everything's Chick-fil-A.
I get that.
And so she pulls up Chick-fil-A. I go sit in the passenger seat, and we for 10 or 15 minutes we have a little picnic in the parking lot, and then most times she stays, but if she's got to get back to the kids, then she heads back. And but yeah, like you said, they got to be on board, because if not, then it's definitely a struggle, because I'm like you. I don't have any other hobbies. Athletics, sports, my job is my hobby. When I'm at home and got some downtime, I'm constantly searching for other ways that we can better our program, or better this situation or that or whatever. So it's a constant, like I said, it is a lifestyle.
It drives my wife nuts. She's like, if there is a ball on television, you will watch it. Like and that goes all the way back to the way that I was raised. I mean, my dad was an athlete and then a coach. My mom, one of the best athletes I've ever seen. She was an all-state basketball player and barrel raced horses when she was young. She's in her 70s. She could probably beat me in horse right now if we went out in the. So it's just kind of one of those things. My family was always entrenched in athletics. It has always been there. And so the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing now isn't really a surprise to me, even though I ran from it for a long time, but ended up, coming back home, so to speak. So I get it. And like, we've got flag football playoffs that are getting ready to start here soon. My daughter, she'll be with me as we go to watch the teams that we have that are competing, because she's an athlete as well, and has interest in playing that at some point. And so it's just kind of the deal. I mean, if you want to spend time with them, you kind of have to make it. Again, it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Especially college football season, we've kind of made an agreement that on Saturday I can watch any college football game I want, and on Sunday she watches anything she wants, because I'm not a big NFL guy. So
right.
I'm like, hey, that's fine. You got the TV Sunday, I got it Saturday. So
it's a pretty sweet deal you got there.
Hey, it worked. And then once I told her, I said, all right, this transitions after college football is over. She goes, no. The first agreement was college football. I said, all right. I said, we'll see. We'll revisit it once that time comes.
Yeah.
But no, that's good stuff. So, kind of going along with that, you've also stated that ADs and leaders are in a process. Kind of dive in a little more what you mean about, leaders being in a process.
Yeah, that term "in process," we're a work in process. I believe that we're no longer in process when we're in the ground surrounded by our family and friends. Okay. On that day, you're done. But until then, the only thing constant in life is change. We have to be aware of that. We've got to be trying to learn every single day. If we're not doing that, we're really behind the eight ball. And when you get in a situation like that, it puts you in survival mode. You're just kind of reacting. And when you do that, that's when mistakes can happen, because things can fall through the cracks, pretty easily. But by being an active leader, by growing, by being in process all the time, that puts you out in front. And at that point, you're able to really dictate what happens next, because you've put in the work to be able to anticipate, to be able to learn. And you got to make sure that you're not the smartest person in the room, right? I think that's a big thing that not enough leaders take to heart, is that, if you're the smartest person in a room, you need to find another room. Because that is pivotal in you being the well-rounded leader that you need to be, or surrounding yourself with the people that help make everything go, right? If you don't know about something, and again, I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it, the athletic director, athletic administrator profession is the most collaborative community I've ever been a part of. Right? There are no secrets. We all want the same thing. And the ability to broaden that network by learning and asking questions and reading and, doing whatever it is that is your hack. I think that it's pivotal, because as soon as you stop doing that, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, and I think that's good to point out that, especially about the community. With a lot of middle school ADs, this is their first time introduced in maybe any type of leadership other than coaching.
Right.
And a lot of them may have been thrown in, say, well, you are a basketball coach, now you are our AD. And to me, I took it because it was something I wanted to do, and so obviously I started at the middle school, went to the high school, and now I'm back at the middle school. And I believe, to me, that's where my passion is. I feel like that's where I strive the best. But yeah, it's when you come from the coaching world, everything's a secret. You don't you don't want to tell people what you're doing. You don't want to tell people, or give them a form or a playbook or whatever. Where we're ADs, it's I can pick up the phone and call my rival and say, hey, can I have that form? I saw this thing you did, or I saw this post you have. Do you mind sending that over? And they're like, yeah, sure. Which would never happen in the coaching world,
Right. Yeah.
And so,
and I get that too. Most of the time, the only time I'm going to tell you the secrets if I know that mine are better than yours, right?
Yeah.
But that's again, it's the most collaborative community that I've ever been a part of, and I just look forward to it because, to your point, when I got an AD job, I had never been a head coach. I had been a coordinator, but I had never been a head coach. I was a lifetime assistant coach, and so you talk about not really knowing, right? You don't know what you don't know. And I got in and realized real quick I was drinking out of a fire hose, and I was like, man, I've got to start asking some questions. I have got to start, getting ahead of this thing, or it's going to be too big for me. And I literally, we've talked about it on the podcast before. I literally, for the better part of 3 years, I would go to sleep at night and it felt like I had an anvil on my chest. I just felt this weight that, oh my God. And then I started to realize that everything is not a forest fire. Most of the time they are brush fires, and it can wait until tomorrow and it's going to be okay. And then once you start to live through those things and you come out on the other end, you start to realize, okay, well, that's not going to kill me. I can do this. And this is how we need to get there. And it's, with the help of a lot of people.
Yeah. My first year at the high school was that way, especially when it came to the fall eligibility and, going from, a small number. Now you've got a huge number, including football, but then all the other sports in the fall. It felt like there for a week or two that I was drowning and I couldn't breathe.
You got that right. I know that feeling.
Yeah, definitely get that. And then, was able to, like I said, a couple of years later, was able to lean on some of the assistants or some other coaches that, that maybe wanted to inspire to be an AD. And they was like, hey, how can I help? I'm like, well, you can help with eligibility. I'm still going to sign off on everything, but at least help, input it. And so, I think it's definitely a village. And, again, at the middle school, we don't have a lot of assistance or a lot of help or things like that. Yes, the numbers may not be as great as the high school, but I mean, there are some middle schools that I've seen. I mean, they've almost got as much sports as the high schools do.
Right.
So it's and kind of trying to find that balance between teaching and coaching, because we're still having to teach, where most high schools ADs don't, unless you're in a smaller school.
But on the flip side of that, in a lot of cases too, with those high school, like my high school ADs, they have to be assistant principals, so they're not just over athletics. They may have testing, they may have parking, they've got to observe teachers, they have a grade level of discipline, and that's one of the things that we are trying to bring more awareness to the job of the AD and what it entails, because in a lot of buildings, it is just one more thing on the duties and responsibilities list, right? And if a principal doesn't know any better, they're just going to look at the list and they'll go, well, your list is only this long, so maybe we can throw a couple more things on there. Well, you probably shouldn't, because of what the size fish that is, and that's really an education piece to let them know all of the different things that being an AD is.
Yeah, and I've had the conversation before. Is if it's a teacher AD, it's what way does your admin view you? Do they view you as a teacher that's the AD, or do they view you as the AD that teaches?
Right.
And it could be the other way around. Even with if you're an assistant principal, what is your main job? Is it the AD, and then you help with admin stuff, or is it you're 90% admin and then you do the AD stuff? So it's, again, trying to find that balance, and like you said, working with the principal and trying to get that definition really is kind of beneficial. Like I said, I got a great principal. He's a former coach, so he understands the job and what it entails. But like you said, some of them may not. So I mean, how do you get that across to an admin, or how do you help your admins see whether they're a teacher AD or an admin AD? How do we get that across, the importance of that job and the demand of it?
I think you have to continually communicate with them so that they know, because again, people don't know what they don't know, and you can't get mad at them for it. But if you're an AP, you have an admin meeting once a week. Most schools do. Well, you're given the floor in that meeting. Well, use that opportunity. I don't think enough ADs do that. They just kind of sit there, and then they want to go back and complain because they gave you one more thing. Well, maybe in your time in that admin meeting, if you spend it going over what your week's going to look like, well, maybe they would realize there's not as much time in that schedule as maybe they thought, right? The same way with a situation with a teacher. I think that you have to find those opportunities if you've got a planning period, use that planning period. Go have a meeting, decide. We all have the same amount of time in the day. Make better use of yours, and advocate for yourself.
Good deal. So you're big, especially with the hanging AD, you're big on book studies and
Mm-hmm.
getting authors in and talking with authors about leadership and things like that. So kind of asked you the other day, I know that you've got a ton of book titles, because like I said, y'all just had an episode come out, I think it was last week or the past couple of days, with y'all's, as you say, your resident book.
Brian Dodd, that's our guy.
Yeah, your resident book leadership book guru, or whatever you called him. And there was a couple in there too when y'all discussed. Again, this is November 23rd, so I would go back to a couple days before November 23rd and try to find that Hang with the AD episode, and because there was a couple of books in there that I heard, I'm like, hey, I need to get a hold of this and read it over the break. But if you could, if there was like 3 books that you think could benefit the middle school AD or younger AD that they should read, kind of, maybe share those titles and why you think those would be important.
Oh man, you are killing me. To only pick 3. The Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon. I know John Gordon's kind of a softball between John Gordon and John Maxwell, just saying just close your eyes and pick it. But The Power of Positive Leadership was a transformational book for me. It was one that I was one way before it, and I was a completely different person after it, and it was a better version of me. And so, hands down, anytime that I get asked, what's the best leadership book you can do? Do that one. Do that. I don't care what you do after that, but you need to do that one. So The Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon, that's a must. Anything by Ryan Holiday. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Holiday. Ego is the enemy. Stillness is the key. Obstacle is the way. His latest, Discipline is Destiny. Like, all of his stuff is tailor-made for an AD. Okay. You talk about ego, you talk about obstacles. I don't know about you, but you probably have no obstacles, right? I mean, in dealing with those, perfect. Big fan of Sam Chan. He comes out of the faith-based world. He's got a book, New Thinking, New Future. That was a game changer for me. I thought that was a great one. I can't pick 3. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Keep going.
Brent Ledbetter, the What Drives Winning stuff. Any of that stuff, and that's total program type stuff that he does. That is excellent for coaches and teams. And then there's a whole list of ADs. The stuff that Jake Blanchier is doing with his Toolbox series is great. You talk about like a go-to for like a first year AD or somebody that's just getting into it. Those are perfect. Scott Jarvis, the DNA of an athletic of an AD that he did. I actually started several years ago when I would highlight things in a book. I would create a Word document that would be like a companion piece for that. So because most of the time, let's be honest, we see something and we highlight it and we go, oh, that's a really good idea. And then we put it back on the shelf and we never look at it again. Well, so I was like, okay, well, let me do something different. So I started creating a Word document. Now I have the best nuggets from that book, in my opinion, in a Word doc in a digital form that I can use in a million different ways. And I literally, I mean, it's a whole almost notebook full of stuff that I got from the DNA of an AD by Jarvis. So that again, that's a loaded question for me when you start talking about books, just because I am a reader, and you mentioned Brian Dodd. Brian Dodd is a huge resource for us. He's been on the show more than anybody else, and is a big fan of what we're doing. And any of those, we do them around the holidays, around Thanksgiving, so that you guys can ask for them for Christmas and things. But he drops dimes every single time that we talk to him, and that's just in general. You just go have like a general conversation with Brian Dodd, you're better for it afterwards. So Brian Dodd on leadership, that's his blog. I am not a paid endorser of his. I can assure you, I'm just a big fan and a friend. So, yeah, again, that we could have a whole podcast just on the books if you want to, but I'll stop right there. Just a lot of really great stuff out there for sure.
That's good stuff. And I got to kind of piggyback off the DNA by Scott Jarvis. He actually did a podcast that went along with it as well. So it was nice to read it and then hear it.
Right.
So, for those who are, auditory versus visual or whatever learners, it was nice to see them kind of dive in a little deeper to it. So besides the very first one, you said that's your go-to, if an AD needed to pick up a book today, what's your recommendation?
Well, outside of, like I said, outside of the Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon, let's take that one off the table. That one's number one. After that, literally go to your bookstore, find where Ryan Holiday's books are, close your eyes, reach your hand out, grab one, and then go home, because you're going to be better. I think his stuff is just phenomenal. He uses a lot of history, a lot of historical examples to prove, points and things that he talks about. The Obstacle is the Way probably is the best one for the job that we do, only because we end up having a lot of obstacles that we have to deal with, whether it be directly or indirectly. But yeah, go to the Ryan Holiday section, close your eyes, and then take one home.
Good deal. So a couple more things is, I know I think I've heard it, you've been at Cobb County, you've been the director there for 4 years.
Correct.
And then before that, you were a building AD for what, 8?
Yes.
Okay.
Little over 8. Yeah.
So either at your school or there at the county, what do you think that you're most proud of that you either implemented that maybe one of the listeners can take and maybe run with and try to implement into their programs?
Well, obviously at the district level, anytime that we can complete a capital project, that's a big thing. My office, we handle a lot of that. So whether it's turfing fields, building gyms, facility upgrades, things like that, that's kind of the space that I live in right now. And anytime that we can do that and improve a school's facility, make it, whether it be a new facility or making a current facility better, that is always something that is definitely a feather in our cap to be able to do for our schools. Also, recently, my office is literally 3 miles from the Braves Stadium. And we're a big partner with the Atlanta Braves, and started a Coach of the Month award for the district, where we award one female coach, one male coach. And when I first envisioned it, I wanted to be able to give them a night out, because it's so difficult to do that with coaches, right? You never have an opportunity to do that. But I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I mean, I got 16 high schools. I'm going to cut a deal with 16 Longhorns. I don't really know what, I don't know necessarily how to do it. And was having a conversation with a member of the Braves Foundation about something completely unrelated. And she goes, well, I've got a whole battery that has restaurants and everything. Why don't you let me do it? And I said, I will let you do it. Yeah. And out of that, we were able to give each coach that wins it, they're nominated by their local school ADs, and they get a complimentary stay in a hotel down in the battery. They get dinner for 4. They get half off a Top Golf swing suite down there. And it's been huge. And means a lot to them, because again, a lot of the work that we do as coaches and ADs, it's kind of goes unseen, right? And definitely not appreciated the way that it should be. But I think finding a partner in your community that could do something like that is huge. And again, that's loving on your coaches, on the people that are putting in, on the people that are tucking their kids in on Wednesday and not seeing them again till Saturday because of the way their schedules overlap. Really putting that time in with other people's kids, not their own, and finding a way to love on them. No matter where you are, you're close to somebody that could help with something like that. And so I think that was something that was huge that we just kind of stumbled into. And then obviously, developing that nationwide network through the podcast and the AD roundtable that we're doing has been huge, because that benefits my ADs as well, because everything that we do through both of those things, they benefit from as well. So, I think that's I'm definitely proud of all of that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, like you said, I think that goes back to the process is, reading the books, but not only reading, but listening to the different podcasts out there. And it doesn't have to be, say, this podcast or hanging with the AD. It could be any leadership podcast or thing that could, you could take a nugget from and bring into your program, because it's, in the long run, it is a leadership role. Again, it doesn't matter if it's athletics or music or whatever. It's still a leadership. You're still leading people.
Well, and I'll tell you, and another thing too, just because let's say it's you're talking high school to middle school, you're talking collegiate to high school, you're talking big high school to small high school. Don't think that stuff doesn't translate. Josh and I talk about all the time when we interview a college AD. A lot of people would think, what does a college AD have anything in common with a high school AD? Well, the bottom line and the money probably, that's a completely different animal. But if you listen to what they say, there are some really good things that you can take and adapt. And I think that not a lot of people do that. They see, if I'm working in a small school, I see a big school, I'm like, well, there's no way that I could do that. I don't have the resources. Well, I think you're selling yourself short right there. I think that you're better off looking at it and going, okay, how can I, let's go ahead and let's think a little bit, right? Okay. Let's think, how can I take that? I really like that. How can I modify that to put it on a smaller scale? And here's the deal. We've already talked about it. Reach out to that AD, pick up the phone and say, listen, I'm on a much smaller scale. How do you think is best for me to do this at my school? And I'm telling you, 10 times out of 10, you're going to get an idea that you can run with. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proof for that. Listening to some of those college guys, I've gotten ideas off of just game day experience, off of how to have a better relationship with the coaches, have the better relationship with the players, whatever. Yes, it's not on this grand of a scale as they are, but I can still have a greeter at the door, greeting everybody and telling them we're glad to see them, or making sure that my facilities are up to par, and that to run our facilities like we're going to be on national TV.
Right.
I mean, so it's you definitely can get a bunch of nuggets from that. And I do like the partnering with a local business to kind of let the coaches enjoy a night out. I think that's big, because once we're all in a social media world. Once you blast out that this is the coach of the month and they received a gift certificate to this restaurant, then other local restaurants that see it are going to want to say, hey, we want to get involved now too. So maybe it's, maybe it starts off with one night out, but then, if it may turn into a full week of free meals, if you have 4 or 5 restaurants that want to, get involved and they all want to donate something each month.
And to your point, the once this thing took off and we did it, the first couple times, the Braves Foundation reached back out to us and said, "Listen, we want to expand this thing a little bit better. We're going to work on something that we can do that is even more. We want to be able to do more, because, I mean, they get a lot of a good." Good PR out of it, because they're doing a really good thing for people that are really putting in, and that's kind of a win all the way around. But to your point, once that thing's contagious, right? Mm-hmm. More people are going to want to jump on board. More people are going to want to be a part of it. And so I think that it's definitely a situation that could be contagious in the best way.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I stole one of your things. I guess it was that year of the COVID, and we had that coaches insider conference thing. I can't even remember what it was called, but you presented something about the social media, and kind of what y'all do, and tagging sponsors to that and all that, and I mean that's our biggest source of revenue for sponsors is our social media.
Right.
Because I push it as thousands of people are going to see that versus 100 that come into the gym are going to see a banner. And so, that's huge is, we try to put out something every day, a Monday message or a travel Tuesday or whatever, but we have a sponsor for every single one of them.
It costs you nothing just to drop a graphic in the bottom left-hand corner, and people will knock each other over to be a part of it. If when you go to sell it, you can talk numbers, business. I mean, watch Shark Tank. The first question they ask, let's talk numbers, okay? Because they need to know, is it something I want to invest in? It's the same concept, just a smaller scale. If you can go in there and your numbers, I can tell you every single time that I send this out, it's going to end up having 3,000 eyes on it within a 12-hour period. Okay, well now I'm picking up what you're putting down now, and I'm willing to give you money as a result of you being able to go in there and really sell it, because again, it has to be a two-way street. I want to help you. So, and obviously I need you to help me. And being able to know your numbers is absolutely critical whenever you're doing something like that.
Yeah, and all the social media accounts is very easy to know your numbers. You just click on
Super
the analytics
easy.
and it's right there.
Yep.
And then even Google's pushed out the Google Analytics, which even dives even deeper.
Hey, you want to go down a rabbit hole? Go ahead and do that. You'll find out how many people come to your place that have a dog.
Yeah.
It's that stuff's weird.
Yeah,
but
I still haven't got all the way into Google Analytics. I've got it tagged to some of the things we do, but I haven't really dove deeply into it because I'm gonna need about a week to do that.
You are, yeah. Go ahead and clear your schedule, because you're going to look up and it'll be 6 hours later. But yeah, it's definitely good stuff.
Good deal. Kind of in closing, if there was one, I know a lot of guests have had a hard time picking one. So if you got two or three, that's fine. But if there was one trait that you think that is kind of most important for middle school AD or for a younger AD that needs to be successful, what do you think that is?
I'm gonna say it one way and then I'll say it another way. In general, it's the ability to stay calm. Okay. Where I'm from in South Georgia, we got a lot of just random sayings, right? And one of them is, my mom, she used to always say, you got to be a duck on the water. And what that means is if you see a picture of a duck and that duck's going on the water, he looks just as calm as he can be. But underneath that surface, his legs are going 90 to nothing. It's absolute chaos under there. And that's the way that leaders have to be. Everyone is going to look at you to determine how they are supposed to respond, how they are supposed to react. And so the ability to stay calm and to keep the temperature down, I think is number one. You're right. I can't just give you one. I think that you have to be flexible. I think you have to lean into new ideas. I've already mentioned it. You can't be the smartest person in the room, but all of that doesn't matter if you can't be that duck on the water. The ability to be calm in hot situations that you're going to be placed into. I think that's the best thing that has helped me, because I know everybody's looking at me. They all, as soon as it gets hot in the kitchen, everybody's going to look at you. And if you're losing your mind, they will too. And so I think the ability to stay calm is absolute key.
Yeah, and it's maybe the ability to be devil's advocate. I know sometimes my coaches don't really like when I come back with a question, but okay, what happens if this? Or, if they come as solutions, we want to do this and this and this. Great. What happens if that don't work? What happens if this don't work? Or what happens if you plan for 500 people and only 100 show up? And they're like, come on, coach, think positive. I am thinking positive, but we have to have a plan in place too, and know what's going to happen if things happen. If it's an outdoor event, what happens if it's a big monsoon and thundering and lightning?
But that mentor, Dr. Trachtenbroit that I was telling you about, the principal of mine, he drove me nuts with that. I would go in and I would meet with him, and let's say I worked all weekend on a plan. We got a game night on Friday. We're going to recognize 18,000 people, whatever, you know how it goes when you end up starting to recognize people. You got this night and that night and, everything else. And he would do that. He would henpeck that thing left and right. Well, what about this? What about that? What about that? And here's the deal. He wasn't challenging me really. He was stretching me. He was saying, have you thought about this? And by the time, he ended up retiring and I ended up taking this county job at about, right at the same time. I felt like I had been stretched enough that I was asking myself those questions as I was developing things, as I was creating things. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So to your point, that's you need those people around you. You need those people, those what if people, because they'll drive you nuts. But at the same time, it probably is going to help you stop something before it happens because they were able to think about it. You were able to assess and think of a solution.
Yeah, maybe you're not paddling as fast underwater. Because
very true. That's the goal.
Because it's all right. If this happens, what's going to happen? My biggest struggle on I guess stress was the ticket shower. The ticket taker going to show up.
Right.
What happens if the ticket taker don't show up? Ultimately, I got to go stand at the gate, but I've got 10 other things I got to do. So kind of having that backup or whatever, or sometimes if they feel like you're harassing them, 2 or 3 days before, it's like, hey, just remember, especially if you're dealing with coaches. Now, if you're paying a paid company to come in, then usually you don't have that issue. But if you have coaches or teachers or admin or whatever taking tickets, that was always my stress is what if, the teacher who, spouse calls or a kid gets sick or
oh whatever. Yeah, life's going to happen.
Yeah. And now you're stuck without a ticket taker. And so, or much less if they're your PA announcer.
No, then you are the ticket taker.
That's right.
You have one. It is on your name tag now.
It's that's what I was saying. It's you, but then now my stress is, okay, there's 10 other things I have to do.
Right.
But it's like I said, it's definitely a struggle sometimes under the water, but we can't let people see it on top of the water. So
don't let them see you sweat.
Good deal. Well, I know we, a lot of people kind of already know how to get in contact with you, but if you want to kind of tell people how to get in contact with you the best way, and that way if they have more questions they want to ask and kind of pick your brain a little more, that they can.
Yeah, absolutely. So email is probably the best way. So my email, don.baker, BAKER, at Cobb, COBBK12.org. That's just my school email. That's probably the best way. At Don Baker 0495 on Twitter. That's probably the second best way. But between those two, never hesitate to reach out. We are in this thing together, and we'll help anybody at any time in any way that I can.
Well, we appreciate you. Like I said, I think that speaks for you already. Just coming on to the middle school podcast, and like you said, not really having middle school there. But again, it doesn't matter if it's middle school, high school, college. Leadership is leadership. So
you got it.
We can learn from everyone and anything we do. So there again, we appreciate it. Like I said, this episode will air 2 days before Christmas. So
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah. So December 23. So yes, Merry Christmas. And you've got some, if you get some Christmas money, you got some books that you can go purchase with that Don mentioned. So, but again, we appreciate it. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Middle School Athletic Director Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, please subscribe on the platform that you are listening or viewing from, and give us a rating and a review to help us know how we are doing.
This episode was sponsored by Gipper.
See you next time.
Use the code MSAD10 for 10% off any Gipper plan at Gipper.com.